The CEO let her go without knowing she was expecting his child. Years later, the reunion was. The morning light filtered through the towering skyscrapers of Manhattan, casting long shadows across Veronica Carter's apartment as she expertly maneuvered between scattered dinosaur toys and half-built Lego structures. The scent of maple syrup and fresh coffee filled the air, mixing with the faint traces of her signature vanilla wood perfume. At 28, she had mastered the art of morning multitasking, preparing breakfast, reviewing patient files on her tablet, and keeping an eye on her energetic 5-year-old son. Jaden Elijah Carter, what did I say about leaving your cereal bowl on the coffee table? Veronica called out, her voice stern but warm. The pitter-patter of small feet announced her son's arrival before she could even turn around. Sorry, Mommy. Jaden appeared in the kitchen doorway, his caramel-colored curls still messy from sleep, his green-brown eyes sparkling with the kind of innocence that made her heart melt every single time. He was wearing his favorite dinosaur pajamas, the ones with little T-Rexes that glowed in the dark. Veronica couldn't help but smile as she watched him carefully carry his bowl to the sink, standing on his tiptoes to reach. Every time she looked at him, she saw traces of Jacob, in the determined set of his jaw, in the way his eyebrows furrowed when he concentrated, in the slight dimple that appeared in his left cheek when he smiled. It was both a blessing and a curse, these constant reminders of the man who had walked away 5 years ago. Ready for school, baby? She asked, pushing away the memories that threatened to surface. Today was going to be busy enough without dwelling on the past. She had a full schedule at the pediatric ward, followed by preparation for tomorrow's medical conference. Can I wear my space shirt? Jaden asked, already bouncing toward his room. Lucas said we're learning about planets today. The one with the rockets. It's in the dryer, sweetheart. How about the blue one with the stars instead? Their morning routine continued with the familiar rhythm they'd perfected over the years. Veronica helped Jaden dress, packed his lunch, peanut butter and banana sandwich, cut diagonally just the way he liked it, and checked his backpack for the 3rd time to make sure he hadn't sneaked in any of his precious dinosaur figures. As they waited for the elevator in their apartment building, Jaden tugged at the hem of her white medical coat. Mommy, Tommy from class said everyone has a daddy. Where's my daddy? The question hit her like a physical blow, as it did every time he asked. Veronica knelt down to his level, her heart aching. Baby, we've talked about this. Some families are different. Some have a mommy and daddy. Some have 2 mommies, while some have 2 daddies. And some doys like us have just a mommy who loves them more than anything in the whole wide world. Jaden nodded, but she could see the questions lingering in his eyes. The elevator dinged, saving her from further explanation. The drive to Jaden's school was filled with his chatter about planets, dinosaurs, and his best friend, Lucas's new puppy. Veronica listened, offering appropriate enthusiasm while navigating through Manhattan's morning traffic. After dropping him off with a tight hug and 3 kisses, their mandatory morning goodbye ritual, she headed to Mount Sinai Hospital, where her day was already filling up with appointments. The pediatric ward was her sanctuary, the place where everything made sense. Dr. Veronica Carter was respected, confident, and in control, a far cry from the woman who sometimes lay awake at night, wondering if she'd made the right choice in never telling Jacob about their son. Dr. Carter, your first patient is ready, Hannah, her favorite nurse, announced as Veronica entered the ward. And Dr. Rivers wanted to remind you about tomorrow's conference. Apparently, some big pharmaceutical company is unveiling a new treatment protocol for pediatric asthma. Veronica nodded, already reaching for her first patient's chart. Thanks. Hannah, has the Collins baby's fever broken? The day passed in a blur of patient consultations, rounds, and paperwork. Between examining a toddler with persistent ear infections and calming a nervous mother whose baby had just received vaccinations, Veronica barely had time to think about tomorrow's conference. It wasn't until she was reviewing the conference schedule during her lunch break that she saw it, a name that made her coffee go cold in her hands. Keynote speaker, Jacob Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Pharmaceuticals. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. 5 years. It had been 5 years since she'd seen him, since that rainy night when he'd told her his career had to come first, that he couldn't give her what she needed. 5 years since she'd discovered, 2 weeks later, that she was carrying his child. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez, their elderly neighbor who watched Jaden after school. Little man is asking for dinosaur nuggets for dinner. Should I defrost some? The message snapped Veronica back to reality. She had built a good life for herself and Jaden. She was strong, successful, and her son was happy and healthy. Tomorrow would be just another day. She would sit through Jacob's presentation, maintain her professional composure, and protect the careful balance she'd created. But as she drove home that evening, with Jaden chattering in the back seat about his day at school, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The city lights blurred around them, and for a moment she was 23 again, standing in the rain, watching Jacob walk away. "Mommy, can we have ice cream for dessert?" Jaden's voice pulled her back to the present. "Not tonight, baby. But how about we read 2 stories before bed instead of 1? His excited "yes" made her smile, grounding her in the present. Whatever tomorrow brought, she had everything she needed right here in this car. Her son's laughter, his endless questions, his boundless love. Later that night, after Jaden was asleep, Veronica stood in front of her closet, trying to decide what to wear to the conference. Her fingers lingered on a navy blue dress she hadn't worn in years. Professional, polished, confident, everything she needed to be tomorrow. She pulled it out, holding it against herself in the mirror. The woman who stared back at her wasn't the same one Jacob had left behind. She was stronger now, with achievements earned through years of hard work and determination. Her curls were styled differently, her posture more assured, her eyes holding wisdom that only came from navigating life's unexpected turns. As she laid out her clothes for tomorrow, Veronica tried to ignore the whispers of what if that echoed in her mind. What if Jacob recognized Jaden in her features? What if he demanded answers? What if he wanted to be part of their lives? Or worse, what if he didn't? Sleep eluded her that night, memories and possibilities swirling through her mind like autumn leaves in a storm. Down the hall she could hear Jaden's soft breathing through the baby monitor. She still couldn't bring herself to put away. In less than 12 hours, she would face the man who had unknowingly given her the greatest gift of her life and the greatest heartbreak. The city that never sleeps hummed outside her window, a constant reminder that life moved forward, regardless of the past's hold on us. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring. For now, Veronica closed her eyes, letting the sound of her son's peaceful breathing lull her into an uneasy sleep. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel buzzed with the steady hum of medical professionals, networking over coffee and continental breakfast. Veronica adjusted her navy blue dress for the 100th time, grateful she'd arrived early enough to secure a seat near the back of the room. Her curls were perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, armor for the battle ahead. "Dr. Carter!" Dr. Rivers waved from across the room, making her way through the crowd. "I saved you a spot at our table. Much better view than back here." Veronica's stomach clenched. "I'm fine here, really. Better for taking notes." "Nonsense! Mitchell Pharmaceuticals is unveiling groundbreaking research. You'll want to see all the presentation slides clearly." Before Veronica could protest further, her colleague was already gathering her belongings. The table Dr. Rivers led her to was front and center, offering a perfect view of the podium. Veronica's hands trembled slightly as she arranged her notebook and tablet, hyper-aware that in less than 30 minutes, Jacob would be standing mere feet away from her. "Their CEO is supposed to be brilliant," Dr. Rivers continued, oblivious to Veronica's discomfort. "Youngest CEO in the pharmaceutical industry. Did you know he completely revolutionized their research department?" "I've heard," Veronica managed, her voice steady despite the thundering of her heart. She had deliberately avoided reading any news about Jacob over the years, but his success had been impossible to ignore completely. The lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the crowd. Veronica's phone buzzed in her purse, a message from Mrs. Rodriguez with a photo of Jaden at breakfast, milk mustache and all. The sight of her son's smile centered her, reminded her why she was here. This was a professional conference, nothing more. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Mitchell Pharmaceuticals, Mr. Jacob Mitchell." The applause faded to white noise as Jacob strode onto the stage. 5 years had only enhanced his presence. His sandy blonde hair was shorter now, more professionally styled, and his tailored charcoal suit spoke of success and confidence. But it was his eyes that caught her, those same intense grey eyes that now looked so much like Jaden's when he was deep in thought. "Thank you all for being here today," Jacob began, his voice sending an involuntary shiver down Veronica's spine. "At Mitchell Pharmaceuticals, we believe in transforming pediatric care through innovation." Veronica tried to focus on taking notes, on maintaining her professional demeanor, but every gesture, Every inflection of his voice brought back memories she'd fought to suppress. The way his hands moved as he spoke, she'd once loved watching those hands prepare dinner in her tiny apartment kitchen. The slight tilt of his head when he emphasized a point. She'd seen that same expression on Jaden's face countless times. Halfway through the presentation, Jacob's eyes swept across the audience and locked with hers. For a fraction of a second, his carefully constructed professional facade cracked. He faltered almost imperceptibly, recovering so quickly that anyone who didn't know him would have missed it. But Veronica knew him, had known him, and she saw the recognition, the shock, the flood of emotions that mirrored her own. The rest of the presentation passed in a blur. Veronica's notebook remained empty, her pen hovering uselessly over blank pages. When the lights came up for the Q&A session, she gathered her things quickly, intending to slip out during the confusion. "Dr. Carter, don't you have a question about the new protocol?" "Doctor," Rivers asked, raising her hand before Veronica could stop her. "Dr. Carter's research on pediatric asthma treatment has been groundbreaking," she announced to the room. Jacob's eyes found her again. "Dr. Carter, please, your question." Veronica stood, her professional training kicking in despite her racing heart. The long-term studies on children under 6 seem limited. "What additional research is planned to address potential developmental impacts?" "An excellent question," Jacob replied, his voice perfectly controlled. "We've actually initiated a comprehensive 5-year study." He answered her question thoroughly, professionally, but his eyes never left hers, searching for something she couldn't name. The moment the session ended, Veronica headed for the door, but the crowd of physicians eager to network created an impossible barrier. She felt him before she saw him, that familiar presence at her back that still, after all these years, made her skin tingle. "Veronica," she turned slowly, meeting those grey eyes that had haunted her dreams for 5 years. "Jacob, you look—" he started, then stopped, seemingly at a loss for words, a first for the confident CEO she'd just watched command a room of hundreds. Successful, professional, a lot can change in 5 years. The words came out sharper than she'd intended. "Beautiful," he finished quietly. "You look beautiful." Before she could respond, her phone rang. Mrs. Rodriguez's ringtone. Veronica's heart stopped. "I need to take this," she said, already turning away. "Of course, Mrs. Rodriguez, I'll be right there," she said into the phone, her voice tense. No, it's fine. Tell him Mommy's coming." She ended the call to find Jacob staring at her, his expression unreadable. "You're a mother?" The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken implications. Before Veronica could respond, Dr. Rivers appeared with her tablet. "Dr. Carter, look at this photo from this morning. Your little boy is getting so big." On the screen was a picture from the hospital's recent family day, Veronica and Jaden laughing together, his curls wild in the wind, his grey eyes sparkling with joy. Jacob's eyes. Veronica watched as recognition, shock and understanding washed over Jacob's face in waves. "He's—" Jacob's voice cracked. "How old is he?" "I have to go," Veronica said, grabbing her purse. "Shows he's not feeling well, and his sitter needs me to—" "A fiver," Jacob said, not a question. "He's 5 years old." The crowd around them continued to mill about, oblivious to the earth-shattering moment unfolding in their midst. Veronica met Jacob's gaze, saw the calculations happening behind those familiar eyes. 5 years since their breakup, 5 years since that rainy night, 5 years of memories he'd never had. "Gaia Veronica," he said, her name a plea, a question, an accusation all at once. "Is he—" "I have to go," she repeated, already moving toward the door. "He needs me. He needs me, too." Jacob's voice carried across the lobby, causing several heads to turn. "If what I think, if he's—" "Veronica, please." She paused at the door, her hand trembling on the handle. "He's needed you for 5 years, Jacob. Nothing's changed." The ride to Jaden's school was a blur. Her son had a fever, nothing serious, Mrs. Rodriguez had assured her, but enough that he needed to go home. As Veronica drove through the city streets, her mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. Jacob knew, after 5 years of carefully guarded secrets, of building a life around her son's needs, of answering difficult questions with half-truths, Jacob knew. When she arrived at the school, Jaden was waiting in the nurse's office, his cheeks flushed with fever, clutching his favorite dinosaur. "Mommy!" he called out, reaching for her with the unrestrained love that never failed to heal her heart. As she gathered him in her arms, breathing in his familiar scent, Veronica knew that everything was about to change. Her phone had already buzzed several times. Jacob, undoubtedly, with questions she'd avoided for 5 years. Questions she would now have to answer. "Can we have soup for lunch?" Jaden asked weakly, his head resting on her shoulder as she carried him to the car. "Of course, baby. Whatever you want." She held him tighter, wondering how many more moments like this she would have before she had to share them. Jacob Mitchell sat in his parked Tesla outside Mount Sinai Hospital, staring at the illuminated building where he knew Veronica worked. 2 days had passed since the conference, 48 hours of sleepless nights and endless questions. His normally pristine penthouse office was littered with printouts of social media photos he'd found, precious glimpses of the son he never knew he had. The weight of his Rolex felt heavy on his wrist as he checked the time again. According to the hospital directory he'd accessed, Veronica's shift would end in 20 minutes. His fingers drummed against the steering wheel, his usual CEO confidence replaced by an unfamiliar nervousness. "Mr. Mitchell," his assistant's voice came through the car's Bluetooth system, "the board is asking about the Tokyo meeting tomorrow." "Cancel it," Jacob replied, his eyes fixed on the hospital entrance. "Cancel everything for the next week." "Sir, but the merger." "Alice, I just found out I have a 5-year-old son. The merger can wait." Silence filled the car before Alice responded, "I'll handle everything, sir, and congratulations." Jacob ended the call, the word congratulations echoing in his mind. What right did he have to congratulations? He'd missed first steps, first words, first everything. The thought made his chest tight with a pain he'd never experienced in all his years of corporate battles. Movement at the hospital entrance caught his eye. Veronica emerged, her white coat draped over her arm, those familiar curls catching the late afternoon sun. She was headed toward the parking garage, but Jacob was already out of his car, his long strides carrying him toward her. "Veronica!" She froze, then turned slowly. "Following me now. We need to talk," he said, closing the distance between them. "About Jaden." The name felt foreign, yet precious on his tongue. Jaden, his son. The thought still sent shockwaves through his system. "He's sick," Veronica said, her voice clipped. "Mrs. Rodriguez is with him, and I need to get home." "Let me drive you," Jacob offered quickly. "Please, we can talk on the way." Veronica's eyes darted between him and the parking garage, calculating. "Fine," she finally said, "but only because it's faster than finding my car." The short walk to his Tesla was silent, charged with unspoken words. Once inside, Jacob found himself hyper-aware of her presence, the familiar scent of her perfume, the way she automatically reached to adjust the air conditioning just as she used to in his old car. "How is he?" Jacob asked as they pulled into traffic. "You said he's sick." "Just a fever. He'll be fine in a day or two." Veronica stared straight ahead. "Turn left at the next light." "Does he?" Jacob's throat felt tight. "Does he know about me?" "He knows some families have daddies and some don't. He's asked about you, of course, but—" She trailed off, her hands twisting in her lap. "But you never told him." The words came out harsher than he intended. "Why, Veronica, why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "When exactly should I have told you, Jacob? When you were walking away in the rain? When you were changing your number? When you were moving your company across the city? I had a right to know, and I had a right to protect my child." Her voice cracked slightly. "You made it very clear that your career came first. What was I supposed to think would happen to a baby?" The words hit him like physical blows. He wanted to defend himself, to explain that he'd been young and stupid, terrified of failing at a relationship when his company was just taking off. But all his carefully constructed explanations felt hollow in the face of her pain. "I want to meet him," Jacob said quietly. "Properly, not just seeing him from across a room. He's sick. When he's better then, please, Veronica. I've missed so much already." She was quiet for a long moment, directing him through the familiar streets of their old neighborhood. Finally, she spoke. "Saturday. There's a park near our apartment." "He likes the swings." Jacob's heart leaped. "Thank you. What should I bring? What does he like?" "Dinosaurs," Veronica said, a slight softening in her voice. "Especially T-Rex. And he's obsessed with building things." "But Jacob—" She turned to look at him fully for the first time. "If you're going to be in his life, it has to be for real. No disappearing acts. No putting work first. He's not a business deal you can schedule around board meetings." They pulled up outside her apartment building, a modest but well-maintained structure in a good neighborhood. Through the lobby windows, Jacob caught a glimpse of an elderly woman, pacing with a small figure in dinosaur pajamas. "That's him," he breathed, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. Veronica gathered her things quickly. Saturday, 10 a.m., Riverside Park, near the 83rd Street playground. "Don't be late." As she hurried toward the building, Jacob called after her. "What's his full name?" She paused at the door. "Jaden Elijah Carter." Then she was gone, disappearing inside with their son. Jacob sat there long after they'd gone inside, staring at the building's facade. Somewhere up there, his son was probably having dinner, maybe watching cartoons, doing all the normal things 5-year-olds do, all the things he should have been part of. His phone buzzed. Another message about the Tokyo merger. For the first time in his career, Jacob Mitchell, the man who had built a pharmaceutical empire through sheer determination and endless work hours, didn't care about a business deal. He drove home in a daze, his mind racing with plans. By the time he reached his penthouse, his private investigator had already sent him everything he could find about Jaden: school records, medical history, all perfect thanks to his mother's careful attention, even his little league registration from last summer. Jacob stayed up late into the night, studying every detail as if trying to make up for 5 years of absence through sheer force of will. He ordered every popular dinosaur toy he could find, had his assistant research the best building sets for 5-year-olds, and spent hours reading parenting blogs about how to connect with children. As dawn broke over the city, Jacob stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city come to life. In 3 days, he would meet his son, really meet him, not just glimpse him from afar. The thought terrified and excited him in equal measure. His phone buzzed again, this time with an email from his lawyer about custody rights. Jacob stared at it for a long moment before deleting it unread. No, he wouldn't approach this like a business transaction. For once in his life, Jacob Mitchell would have to earn something not through money or power, but through patience, understanding, and love. He picked up a framed photo from his desk, himself at 5, sitting on his own father's shoulders at a baseball game. It was one of his few happy memories of a man who had always put work first. "I won't make the same mistakes," he whispered to the empty room. "I promise." Saturday suddenly felt very far away. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of autumn day that painted Central Park in shades of gold and crimson. Jacob arrived at Riverside Park 45 minutes early, his Tesla's back seat filled with carefully chosen gifts. He'd changed his outfit 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a casual blue sweater, attempting to look more like a dad than a CEO. The playground was still quiet, only a few early-rising families dotting the landscape. Jacob found himself studying each child, wondering if this was how it would feel forever now, seeing his son in every little boy with curly hair and dinosaur t-shirts. At precisely 9:58 a.m., he spotted them entering the park. Veronica looked different in casual clothes, fitted jeans and a soft cream sweater that caught the morning light. But it was Jaden who captured Jacob's complete attention. His son wore a red and blue striped shirt under a light jacket, little sneakers lighting up with each bouncing step. In his arms, he clutched a T-Rex plush that had clearly seen better days. "Remember what we talked about," Jacob heard Veronica say softly to Jaden as they approached. "So this is Mommy's friend who really wanted to meet you." Jaden partially hid behind Veronica's legs, one hand gripping the hem of her sweater, a gesture Jacob would soon learn was his son's telltale sign of nervousness. The sight made his heart constrict. "Hi, Jaden," Jacob said, kneeling down to the boy's eye level, his voice softer than he'd ever heard it. "I really like your dinosaur. Is that a T-Rex?" Jaden's eyes lit up slightly, though he didn't leave his mother's side. "His name is Rex. He's the king of all dinosaurs." "Really? That's amazing. You know, I brought something that Rex might like to meet." Jacob reached into one of the bags beside him, pulling out a gleaming new velociraptor figure. Would Rex like to say hello? The toy worked better than any corporate negotiation strategy ever had. Jaden took a tentative step forward, then another, until he stood just out of arm's reach. "Raptors hunt in packs," he informed Jacob seriously. "That's why they're so dangerous." "Wow, you really know your dinosaurs." Jacob's genuine amazement seemed to further ease Jaden's reserve. "I brought some other dinosaurs too, but I'm not sure what all of them are. Maybe you could help me identify them." Veronica watched from a nearby bench as Jacob spread a blanket on the grass, carefully laying out an array of dinosaur figures. Her expression was unreadable, but her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. "That's a Stegosaurus," Jaden explained, growing more animated. "See the plates on his back. And that's a triceratops. They're herbivores. That means they only eat plants. You're so smart, Jacob marveled, drinking in every detail of his son's excitement. How did you learn so much about dinosaurs? Mommy takes me to the Natural History Museum, Jaden said, now fully engaged in playing with the toys. We go every month. And she reads me dinosaur books at bedtime. Jacob glanced at Veronica, seeing years of dedicated motherhood in that simple statement. She'd given their son everything, including the parts that should have been his responsibility. Hey, Jaden, Jacob said, pulling out another bag. I also brought something for building. Do you like to build things? Jaden's eyes went wide at the sight of the advanced building set. Wow, can we build it now? Of course, but maybe we should ask your mum if it's okay first. This small gesture, checking with Veronica, earned Jacob the first slight softening of her rigid posture. She nodded, and Jaden literally jumped with excitement. The next hour passed in a blur of construction pieces and dinosaur facts. Jacob discovered that his son had an incredible attention span for building, that his tongue stuck out slightly when he concentrated, just like Jacob's did, and that he had an infectious laugh that made everything else in the world fade away. Look, Mommy, Jaden called out periodically. Look what we built. Each time, Veronica would come over, praise their creation, and retreat back to her bench. But Jacob noticed she was moving closer each time, until eventually she sat on the edge of their blanket, offering suggestions for their increasingly elaborate structure. You know what this tower needs? Jacob asked, reaching into yet another bag. Lights! He pulled out a set of safe, battery-operated LED strips. Jaden's delighted gasp was everything. Hey, can we make it glow like a real skyscraper? As they worked together to attach the lights, Jacob felt something he'd never experienced in all his years of business success, pure, uncomplicated joy. Jaden had moved from sitting across from him to leaning against his knee as they worked, apparently forgetting his earlier shyness. I'm getting hungry, Veronica announced around noon. Should we pack up and get some lunch? Jaden's face fell. But we're not finished. Can't we stay longer? The we in that sentence made Jacob's heart skip a beat. He looked at Veronica, trying to convey everything he couldn't say in front of Jaden. Please, just a little longer. I'm just getting to know him. She seemed to understand. How about we get hot dogs from the cart? We can eat here while you finish building. Yes, Jaden bounced up. Can I go with you to pick the toppings? Of course, baby. Veronica stood, then hesitated. We'll be right back, and if you want to stay. Jacob nodded, not trusting his voice. He watched them walk to the hot dog cart, Jaden skipping alongside his mother, chattering away. The sight of them walking away, even temporarily, created an unexpected panic in his chest. When they returned with lunch, Jaden immediately settled back against Jacob's knee, hot dog in one hand, building piece in the other. Can you help me put this part on top? Careful not to get ketchup on your shirt, Veronica warned, but her voice held less edge than before. They ate lunch on the blanket, their half-built creation between them, while Jaden regaled them with stories about his friend Lucas and their adventures at school. Jacob memorized every detail: his son's favorite color, red, his best subject, science, his dream of having a pet dinosaur. The sun's getting strong, Veronica said eventually. We should probably head home soon. But Jaden looked between his mother and Jacob, his lower lip trembling slightly. Will I see you again? He asked Jacob. The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Jacob met Veronica's eyes over their son's head, silently pleading. Would you like that? Veronica asked Jaden softly. To see Jacob again. Jaden nodded enthusiastically. Can we finish building next time, and maybe he can come see my dinosaur collection? We'll see, Veronica said, but her voice was gentle. Right now, it's time to pack up. Jacob helped gather the toys, carefully separating the ones he'd brought from Jaden's own wrecks. But when he tried to pack away the building set, Jaden's face fell. Actually, Jacob said, looking at Veronica for permission, why don't you keep this? We can work on it next time. Really? Jaden's eyes lit up. Mommy, can I? Veronica nodded, and Jaden threw his arms around Jacob's waist in an impulsive hug. Thank you. The feeling of his son's arms around him for the first time nearly brought Jacob to his knees. He hugged back carefully, memorizing everything about this moment. The smell of sunshine in Jaden's curls, the solid warmth of him, the pure trust in that embrace. As they walked toward the park exit, Jaden between them holding both their hands, Jacob couldn't help but imagine a future where this could be normal, where he could be more than just Mommy's friend who brought toys and built towers. "Bye, Jacob," Jaden called out as they parted ways. "See you next time." Next time? Jacob held on to those words like a lifeline as he watched them walk away, Jaden already talking excitedly about where they would put his new building set. In his car, Jacob sat for a long moment before starting the engine. His phone had dozens of missed calls and messages, but for the first time in his life, Jacob Mitchell had found something more important than business empire he'd built. He had found his son. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Veronica's apartment as she watched Jaden meticulously arrange his dinosaurs around the half-finished tower from the park. 3 days had passed since their meeting with Jacob, and her son hadn't stopped talking about it. "Mommy, when is Jacob coming again?" Jaden asked for what felt like the 100th time. "He said we could finish building." Veronica's phone buzzed. Another message from Jacob. They'd been arriving steadily. Questions about Jaden's routine, his medical history, his likes and dislikes. Each one a reminder of the precarious balance she was trying to maintain. "We'll see, baby. Finish your breakfast or we'll be late for school." As if summoned by her thoughts, a knock at the door made them both look up. Through the peephole, Veronica saw Jacob standing there in an impeccably tailored suit, holding what appeared to be a paper bag from the artisanal bakery down the street. "Jacob," Jaden exclaimed when she opened the door, abandoning his cereal to rush forward. "Hey, buddy." Jacob's corporate demeanor melted instantly as he knelt to receive Jaden's hug. "I was in the neighborhood and thought you might like these." He held up the bag. "They're dinosaur-shaped cookies." Veronica crossed her arms. "In the neighborhood? Your office is in Midtown." "I had an early meeting nearby," Jacob said smoothly, but his slight tell, a twitch at the corner of his mouth, gave away the lie. He'd come deliberately, planning this moment. "Can I have a cookie now?" Jaden asked, already peering into the bag. "After school," Veronica said firmly. "Go finish your cereal." Once Jaden was back at the kitchen table, she turned to Jacob. "You can't just show up unannounced." "I know, I'm sorry, I just—" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache. "I miss him. Every minute I'm not with him, I'm thinking about all the moments I've already missed." "That's not my fault," Veronica said quietly, but the words held less bite than before. "No, it's mine. I know that. But Veronica," he lowered his voice, glancing at Jaden, "I want to be involved. Really involved. Not just weekend visits and surprise cookies." Before she could respond, Jaden called out, "Jacob, want to see what I built yesterday?" The hopeful look Jacob gave her melted something in Veronica's chest. She nodded slightly, and he moved past her into the apartment. "Wow, look at that structure," Jacob exclaimed, examining the tower. "You've been working hard." Veronica watched them interact, seeing the similarities she'd tried so hard to ignore over the years. The way they both gestured with their hands when excited, the identical furrow in their brows when concentrating. "We need to leave for school in 5 minutes," she announced, hating to break up their moment, but knowing routine was important. "I could drive him," Jacob offered quickly. "If that's okay, I'd like to see his school." The request hung in the air. It was a big step, letting Jacob take Jaden somewhere alone, acknowledging him as more than just a friendly visitor. "Please, Mommy," Jaden added, looking between them with hopeful eyes. Veronica felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. "Okay," she heard herself say, "but straight to school, no detours, and text me when you get there." Jacob's face lit up with the same joy she'd seen on Jaden's when he got a new dinosaur. "I promise." "We'll follow all the rules." As they gathered Jaden's things, Veronica noticed Jacob taking mental notes of everything, where they kept his backpack, which jacket was his favorite, how he liked his shoes double-knotted. "Don't forget Rex," Jaden said, grabbing his faithful T-Rex. "Actually, buddy, maybe Rex should stay home today," Jacob suggested gently. "So we wouldn't want him to get lost at school." Veronica felt a surge of something unexpected, gratitude, perhaps, for how naturally Jacob seemed to understand parenting, despite his newness to it. Watching them leave together was harder than she'd expected. Jaden's small hand in Jacob's large one, their matching grins as they headed for the elevator. It was a glimpse of what might have been, what could still be. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Mount Sinai Hospital. The email she'd been both hoping for and dreading had arrived, an offer for a prestigious position at their new pediatric center in Boston. Veronica sank onto the couch, surrounded by dinosaurs and building blocks, evidence of the life she'd carefully constructed, now shifting in ways she couldn't control. The position in Boston was incredible. Better pay, more research opportunities, a chance to make a real difference in pediatric care. A month ago, she would have accepted immediately. But now, her phone lit up with a photo from Jacob, Jaden grinning in front of his school backpack perfectly adjusted, delivered safely as promised. The caption read, then another message. He told me all about his teacher, Mrs. Henderson, and his best friend Lucas on the way. Did you know Lucas has a new puppy? Despite herself, Veronica smiled. Of course, Jacob was already fully invested in every detail of Jaden's life. It was how he approached everything, all in, full commitment. She was typing a response when another message came through. There's a parent-teacher conference next week. I know I probably don't have any right to ask, but Veronica's fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was another line to cross, another step toward legitimizing Jacob's role in Jaden's life. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Jacob, slightly out of breath. I dropped him off and came straight back, he said before she could speak. We need to talk, really talk, about everything. Jacob, please, Veronica, let me take you to breakfast. There's so much I need to know, so much I want to understand. About him. About us. There is no us, she said automatically, but the words felt hollow. Maybe not, but there's him, and he deserves both of us, doesn't he? Working together, not against each other. Veronica looked at her watch. Her first patient wasn't until 11. Fine, breakfast. But this doesn't change anything. Over coffee and untouched pastries at a quiet cafe, they talked, really talked, for the first time in 5 years. About Jaden's birth, how scared Veronica had been, how alone she'd felt, about his first steps, his first words, his first day of school. I want to be legally recognized as his father, Jacob said finally. Not to take him from you, never that, but to have rights, responsibilities, to be able to pick him up from school without special permission, to be there if he's ever sick, to be his dad. Veronica stared into her coffee. And what happens when work takes priority again? When there's a big merger or a board meeting? I've already started delegating more, restructuring things at the company. Nothing is more important than him. You say that now, because I mean it now. Jacob leaned forward. I know I hurt you. I know I was an idiot 5 years ago. But please, don't punish both of us, all of us, for those mistakes. Veronica's phone buzzed again. Another reminder about the Boston position. They needed an answer by the end of the week. There's something you should know, she said slowly. I've been offered a position in Boston. The color drained from Jacob's face. Boston? But that's a 4-hour drive. Yes. You can't take him away, Jacob said, his voice cracking. Please, Veronica. I just found him. I haven't decided anything yet, she met his eyes. But you need to understand, for 5 years, every decision I've made has been about what's best for him. That's not going to change. Then let me prove that having me in his life is what's best for him. Jacob reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. Give me that chance, Veronica. Please. Looking at him now, she saw not the ambitious young CEO who had walked away in the rain, but a father desperate to be part of his son's life. The question was, could she trust this new version of Jacob Mitchell? The parent-teacher conference room felt impossibly small, with both Veronica and Jacob seated beside each other. Mrs. Henderson, a warm-faced woman in her 50s, glanced between them with poorly concealed curiosity. It was the first time they'd presented themselves as Jaden's parents together. Jaden is an exceptional student, Mrs. Henderson began, spreading out several colorful drawings. His imagination and problem-solving skills are remarkable for his age. Jacob leaned forward, drinking in every detail. These are incredible, he murmured, fingers hovering over a detailed drawing of what appeared to be a dinosaur-themed amusement park. Veronica noticed his hand trembling slightly. He's particularly gifted in science, Mrs. Henderson continued, though lately he's been talking non-stop about building skyscrapers. Something about special lights? Veronica saw Jacob's proud smile and felt an unexpected warmth in her chest. The building set from their park meeting had become Jaden's favorite toy, occupying hours of his time. However, Mrs. Henderson's tone grew more serious. I have noticed some changes in his behavior this past week. He's been asking a lot of questions about families, particularly about fathers. The warmth in Veronica's chest turned to ice. She felt Jacob stiffen beside her. Is everything all right at home? Mrs. Henderson asked gently. Jaden mentioned that his friend Jacob might be more than just a friend. The question hung in the air between them. Veronica found herself reaching for the answer, but Jacob spoke first. "I'm Jaden's father," he said, his voice steady but emotional. I've recently come back into his life. We're working on making this transition as smooth as possible for him." Mrs. Henderson nodded, understanding. "That explains a lot. Children are remarkably perceptive. Jaden's been drawing more family pictures lately." She pulled out another drawing, 3 figures holding hands, one significantly taller with yellow-brown hair. Jacob's breath caught audibly. After the conference, they walked together toward the parking lot in silence. The autumn wind whipped around them, carrying dried leaves in small cyclones. "We need to tell him," Jacob said finally, "about who I really am." Veronica hugged her coat tighter. "I know. He's confused, Veronica. He knows something's different about me, about us. We can't keep pretending I'm just your friend who brings him toys." "You don't think I know that?" Veronica stopped walking, turning to face him. "You don't think I see how he looks at you, how he asks about you constantly, how he started saying he wishes you could stay for dinner every night?" "Then let me stay," Jacob said softly. "Not just for dinner. Let me be there for everything. It's not that simple. The Boston offer—" "Forget Boston." Jacob's voice rose slightly before he caught himself. "Sorry, I can't lose him again, Veronica. I can't lose either of you." The slip, "either of you," hung between them like smoke. "Mr. Mitchell," a new voice interrupted them. They turned to see Alice, Jacob's assistant, hurrying across the parking lot. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but the board is demanding an emergency meeting. The Japanese investors are threatening to pull out." Jacob's jaw clenched. "I told you no interruptions today. They're talking about a vote of no confidence, sir. If you don't come now." Veronica watched the conflict play across Jacob's face, the same expression she'd seen 5 years ago when work always won. But this time was different. "I tell them to schedule it for tomorrow," Jacob said firmly. "My son's teacher just gave me his first report card. Everything else can wait." Alice's eyes widened, but she nodded and retreated. Veronica felt something shift inside her chest. "You've really changed, haven't you?" she whispered. Jacob met her eyes. "Everything's changed. After seeing those drawings, knowing he thinks about me, about us as a family." He took a deep breath. "So I'll step down as CEO if that's what it takes." "What?" "I mean it. I've already started grooming my VP to take over more responsibilities. The company can run without me being there every minute. Jaden can't." Before Veronica could respond, her phone rang, the hospital in Boston. "Take it," Jacob said. "I know it's important," she answered, walking a few steps away. Jacob watched her pace, her free hand gesturing as she talked. He'd always loved that about her, how expressive she was, how passionate about her work. "They need an answer by tomorrow," Veronica said after hanging up. "They're offering even more than before. A research grant, full creative control over the pediatric program." "I'll open a branch in Boston," Jacob said immediately. "Mitchell Pharmaceuticals has been looking to expand anyway. I can—" "Stop," Veronica held up a hand. "You can't rearrange your entire life around us." "Why not? You've arranged yours around him for 5 years. Let me do the same." A group of children burst out of the school's front doors, their laughter carrying across the parking lot. Among them was Jaden, talking animatedly with his friend Lucas. "Mommy, Jacob." Jaden spotted them and ran over, his backpack bouncing. "You're both here." "Hey, buddy." Jacob knelt to receive Jaden's hug, now a familiar greeting. "How was school?" "Amazing. We learned about metamorphosis today. That's when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly." Jaden looked between them. "Are you staying for dinner, Jacob? Mrs. Rodriguez is making spaghetti and meatballs." Veronica saw the hope in both their faces. Father and son, so alike yet still strangers in so many ways. The Boston offer seemed to pulse in her pocket like a living thing. "Actually," she heard herself say, "why don't we all go out for dinner? There's something important we need to talk about." Jacob's eyes snapped to hers, understanding dawning in them. "Really?" Jaden bounced with excitement. "Can we go to the diner with the dinosaur pancakes?" "Sure, baby." Veronica reached for his hand, then surprised herself by holding out her other hand to Jacob. "Let's go as a family." The word felt foreign on her tongue, but right somehow, like a key finally finding its lock after years of trying the wrong doors. As they walked to the car together, Jaden between them chattering about metamorphosis, Veronica felt her own transformation beginning. The carefully constructed walls she'd built over 5 years were changing, morphing into something new, something that might have room for Jacob after all. Her phone buzzed again. Boston calling back. She let it go to voicemail. Some decisions, she was learning, couldn't be made with just the head. Sometimes the heart needed to metamorphose too. The neon sign of Jerry's Diner cast a warm glow over their booth, turning the moment surreal with its vintage charm. Jaden sat between Veronica and Jacob, carefully coloring the kid's menu dinosaur while waiting for his special pancakes. The evening traffic hummed outside, a steady backdrop to the most important conversation they would ever have. "Should we order first?" Jacob asked, his usually confident voice uncertain. His tie was loosened, suit jacket draped over the booth, the CEO facade slipping away in favor of something more vulnerable. Veronica nodded, watching Jaden carefully select another crayon. "Let's get settled first." Their usual waitress, Doris, approached with a knowing smile. She'd served them countless times over the years, had watched Jaden grow from a toddler who could barely reach the table to a boy who knew the menu by heart. "Well, look who it is, my favorite dinosaur expert." Doris winked at Jaden. "The usual, sweetheart. Dinosaur pancakes with extra chocolate chips?" "Yes, please," Jaden beamed. "And can they have the whipped cream spikes like last time?" "You got it, sugar. And for Mom, let me guess, Belgian waffle with strawberries." Veronica managed a smile. "You know me too well, Doris." "And for Dad?" Doris turned to Jacob naturally, causing both adults to freeze. "What can I get you?" Jacob recovered first. "I'll have what he's having. Dinosaur pancakes sound perfect." After Doris left, a charged silence fell over the booth. Jaden continued coloring, humming softly to himself, oblivious to the tension around him. "Look, Mommy." He held up his drawing. "I made the T-Rex blue, like in that movie we watched." "It's beautiful, baby." Veronica stroked his curls, meeting Jacob's eyes over their son's head. They had practiced this conversation a dozen times on the phone last night, but now that the moment was here, all their careful planning felt inadequate. "Hey, buddy," Jacob started, his voice gentle. "How you sometimes ask Mommy about families and about daddies?" Jaden's crayon paused mid-stroke. "Like how Lucas has a daddy who takes him fishing." "Yeah, exactly like that." Jacob's hands trembled slightly as he folded them on the table. "What would you think about having a daddy too?" The crayon dropped, rolling across the paper. Jaden looked up at Jacob, then at his mother, his bright eyes wide with possibility. "Really? Could I?" Veronica felt tears threatening. "Baby, remember how I told you that families come in all different ways, and sometimes it takes time for families to find each other." Jaden nodded slowly, his small hand finding hers on the table. "Well," she continued, her voice thick with emotion, "sometimes daddies need time to be ready to be good daddies, and sometimes they come back when they're ready." Understanding dawned in Jaden's eyes as he turned to Jacob. Are you my daddy?" The question hung in the air like a soap bubble, fragile and iridescent with possibility. Jacob's eyes filled with tears as he nodded. "Yes, Jaden, I'm your daddy." Jaden sat very still, processing this information with the serious concentration he usually reserved for building complex structures. "Is that why you have eyes like mine, and why you scrunch your nose like me when you think hard?" A laugh that was half sob escaped Jacob. "Yes, that's exactly why. We look alike because you're my son." "But," Jaden's lower lip trembled slightly, "where were you before? Didn't you want to be my daddy?" The question struck Jacob like a physical blow. Veronica saw him struggle for words, saw the pain and regret wash over his face. "I didn't know," he said finally, his voice raw with honesty. "I didn't know about you, and that was my biggest mistake. But now that I've found you, now that I know what an amazing, smart, wonderful boy you are, I want to be your daddy more than anything in the whole world. More than building tall buildings. More than anything," Jacob emphasized. "More than all the buildings and all the dinosaurs and all the stars in the sky." Doris approached with their food, but seeing the intensity of the moment, she quietly placed the plates down and retreated without her usual cheerful commentary. Jaden stared at his dinosaur pancakes, the whipped cream spikes suddenly less interesting than the life-changing conversation happening around them. "If you're my daddy," he said slowly, "does that mean you'll stay?" "Forever." "Yes," Jacob promised immediately. "I'll stay forever. I'll be here for breakfast and dinner and bedtime stories. I'll be here for school plays and science projects and weekend adventures. I'll be here for everything, if you'll let me." Veronica watched their son process this, saw the wheels turning in his clever mind. But what about when you have important meetings? Mommy says you run a big company. Jacob glanced at Veronica, acknowledging the echo of her own concerns in their son's question. The company isn't as important as you are. Nothing is as important as being your daddy. Can I? Jaden hesitated, then gathered his courage. Can I call you daddy instead of Jacob? The simple question broke something open in the booth. Jacob's tears fell freely now, and even Veronica found herself wiping her eyes. I would love that more than anything, Jacob managed to say. Jaden was quiet for another moment, then suddenly launched himself into Jacob's arms, nearly knocking over his chocolate milk in the process. Daddy? He tested the word, his face buried in Jacob's shirt. My daddy. Jacob held him close, one hand cradling the back of Jaden's head, the other gripping Veronica's hand across the table. They stayed like that for a long moment, their dinner getting cold, the diner's other patrons pretending not to notice the profound moment unfolding in booth 7. Can Daddy come home with us? Jaden asked eventually, his voice muffled against Jacob's chest. He hasn't seen my whole dinosaur collection yet, and I want to show him my room and my books. And one step at a time, baby, Veronica said gently, though her hand remained in Jacob's. So why don't we eat our pancakes first? Then we can talk about what happens next. Jaden reluctantly returned to his seat, but he stayed pressed against Jacob's side. My pancakes have more chocolate chips than yours, Daddy. The word came so naturally now, as if Jaden had been saving it all this time, waiting for the right person to give it to. They ate their dinner in a new kind of silence, not tense like before, but full of possibility. Jaden insisted on sharing his pancakes with Jacob, carefully cutting them into perfect daddy-sized bites. Every few minutes, he would look up at Jacob with wonder, as if making sure he was still there, still real. When Doris brought the check, she smiled at them knowingly. It's about time, she said quietly to Veronica. I always thought that boy needed a daddy with eyes just like his. Outside the diner, the city had transformed into a wonderland of evening lights. Jaden held both their hands as they walked to the car, swinging between them with newfound joy. Look, he pointed suddenly at the sky. A shooting star, make a wish, Daddy. But Jacob was already looking at his son, at Veronica, at the family he'd nearly lost. I don't need to, he said softly. I already have everything I could wish for right here. The next week unfolded like a dream, each day bringing new firsts that none of them were prepared for. Jacob had practically moved his office to the coffee shop below Veronica's apartment, conducting video calls between story times and dinosaur adventures. The Boston office sat unopened in Veronica's email, a ticking clock she couldn't quite bring herself to face. Daddy, watch this, Jaden called out from the living room, where he was attempting to build the tallest tower yet with his growing collection of building blocks. The word Daddy fell from his lips naturally now, as if he'd been saying it his whole life. Jacob looked up from his laptop, his tie long discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms marked with sticky notes, reminders of promises made to Jaden about future adventures. That's amazing, buddy. But maybe we should add some support beams on the left side. Veronica watched from the kitchen as they worked together, their heads bent close, dark blonde and curls side by side. The sight still caught her off guard sometimes, how right they looked together, how natural their bond had become. Dr. Carter, Hannah's voice through the phone brought her back to reality. The Boston team is asking again about your decision. They need to know by tomorrow morning. I know, Veronica's voice trailed off as she watched Jacob teaching Jaden about structural integrity, using dinosaur figures as examples. They're offering to fly you up this weekend for a final tour of the facility, Hannah continued. They mentioned bringing your son along to see the schools in the area. The thought of separating Jaden from Jacob now, after they'd finally found each other, made her stomach twist. But this was her dream job, everything she'd worked for, a chance to help countless children. I'll call them back, she promised, ending the call just as a crash from the living room announced the tower's collapse. It's okay, buddy. Jacob's voice was gentle. That's why engineers do test runs. Want to try again? Can we make it even taller this time? Jaden asked, already gathering the fallen pieces. Of course, but first, Jacob checked his watch. Isn't it almost time for your favorite show? Dino Rangers, Jaden exclaimed. Daddy, will you watch with me? Please. The sight of New York's most powerful CEO settling onto the couch to watch children's television, his son tucked against his side, made Veronica's heart ache with possibilities. Her phone buzzed again. Boston. With a deep breath, she stepped onto the small balcony, leaving father and son to their show. Dr. Carter, Dr. Williams' warm voice greeted her. I hope we're not catching you at a bad time. No, it's fine. She watched the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over Manhattan. We need your answer, Veronica. The position is incredible. Full research funding, state-of-the-art facilities, and the chance to shape the future of pediatric care. Plus, Boston has excellent schools for Jaden. Through the window, she could see Jacob and Jaden acting out scenes from their show, both of them roaring and laughing. There have been some changes in my personal situation, she began carefully. Ah, yes. We heard about Mitchell Pharmaceuticals, CEO. Quite a story. Dr. Williams paused. You know, we have excellent relationships with several pharmaceutical companies in Boston. I'm sure Mr. Mitchell could find opportunities here. The suggestion hung in the air. Veronica thought about Jacob's empire in New York, built from the ground up, about the board members already questioning his recent absences. I need one more day, she said finally. Please. After ending the call, she stood at the balcony rail, letting the cool evening air clear her head. The door slid open behind her. They're pushing for an answer. Jacob's voice was soft. She nodded without turning. By tomorrow morning. I meant what I said before. I can open a Boston office. Mitchell Pharmaceuticals is already looking at expansion opportunities in New England. Your entire life is here, Jacob. Your company, your board. My son is more important. He moved to stand beside her, their shoulders barely touching. And so are you. The admission hung between them, charged with meaning. Inside, they could hear Jaden humming the Dino Rangers theme song as he continued building. I can't ask you to uproot your life, Veronica said. Not when you're just finding your place in his life. You're not asking. I'm offering. Jacob turned to face her. Do you remember our first apartment? That tiny studio in the East Village, with the broken elevator and the neighbor who played jazz at 3 a.m. Despite herself, Veronica smiled at the memory. We were happy there, really happy, because we were together. Jacob's voice grew softer. I forgot that somewhere along the way, that success means nothing without people to share it with. I won't make that mistake again. From inside came Jaden's voice. Daddy? Mommy? Can we have ice cream? They turned to see their son standing in the doorway, clutching Rex the T-Rex, his eyes hopeful. It's pretty close to bedtime, baby, Veronica started. Please. Jaden deployed his most convincing pout. We can all share one bowl. As a family? The word family did something to Veronica's resolve. She looked at Jacob, saw her own conflict reflected in his eyes. One bowl, she agreed. But then it's bedtime. Later, after Jaden was asleep and Jacob had reluctantly prepared to leave for his own apartment, Veronica found herself staring at her laptop, the Boston email open but unanswered. Stay, she said suddenly, surprising them both. Just stay tonight. We can talk about Boston, about everything. Jacob's hand froze on the doorknob. Are you sure? No, she wasn't sure. About Boston, about them, about any of it. But she was sure about one thing. The look on Jaden's face when he called Jacob Daddy, the way their son was blossoming with both parents in his life. The guest room is made up, she said, and Jaden will want to show you his morning dinosaur routine tomorrow. His morning dinosaur routine? Each dinosaur has to be greeted in a specific order before breakfast. It's very serious business. Jacob smiled, that same smile she'd fallen in love with years ago. I wouldn't want to miss that. As they settled into the living room with cups of tea, the Boston email still unanswered on her laptop, Veronica felt something shift. Maybe the answer wasn't about choosing between her dreams and her family. Maybe it was about finding a way to have both. Tell me about the Boston facilities, Jacob said, pulling out his tablet. Show me everything they're offering you. Let's figure this out together. Together. The word echoed in her mind as they began to talk, really talk, about their future, not just as co-parents, but as a family. Outside, New York City twinkled with endless possibilities, while inside their apartment, three hearts beat in sync, finding their way back to each other, one decision at a time. The morning sun painted Veronica's apartment in shades of gold as she sat at her kitchen counter, staring at her laptop. The deadline for the Boston decision had arrived. In the guest room, she could hear Jacob helping Jaden with his morning dinosaur greetings, their voices a gentle duet of laughter and prehistoric roars. Good morning, Mr. Stegosaurus, Jacob's voice carried through the walls. Jaden tells me you're in charge of breakfast approval. No, Daddy, Jaden giggled. You have to do the special handshake first. The domestic scene made her heart ache. After spending the night talking through every possibility, she and Jacob had fallen asleep on opposite ends of the couch, surrounded by spreadsheets and property listings. Now, in the harsh light of morning, reality demanded an answer. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Williams again. Before she could answer, Jacob emerged from the guest room with Jaden perched on his shoulders. Mission accomplished, he announced. All dinosaurs have been properly greeted, and we have official breakfast clearance. Mommy! Jaden reached for her from his perch. Can we have pancakes? Daddy says he knows how to make them in dinosaur shapes. Actually, baby, Veronica said, lifting him from Jacob's shoulders, we need to have a family talk first. The word family still felt new on her tongue, but Jaden's face lit up at hearing it. They settled around the kitchen table, their son between them, just as they had at the diner days ago. You know how Mommy's been talking about a special job in Boston, Veronica began carefully. Jaden nodded. Like when Lucas moved to California for his daddy's job. Similar to that, yes. She glanced at Jacob, who gave her an encouraging nod. Well, Mommy needs to make a decision about that job today. But, Jaden's lower lip trembled. If we move to Boston, what about Daddy? The question they'd spent all night wrestling with, put so simply by a 5-year-old. Jacob leaned forward. Actually, buddy, that's what we want to talk to you about. You see, I've been doing a lot of thinking about my company. Your big building with all the important meetings. That's right. And I realize something. Buildings can be anywhere, but family is special. Jacob pulled out his tablet, opening a series of photos. Look at these. Jaden leaned forward, examining the images of a beautiful brownstone house with a small garden. What's that? That's a house in Boston, Jacob explained, near where Mommy would work. It has a huge playroom for your dinosaurs, and guess what else? What? It has 3 bedrooms, one for you, one for Mommy, and one for me. If that's something you'd both want. Veronica's breath caught. They hadn't discussed this part last night. Jacob, I've already talked to the board, he continued quickly. We're opening a Boston office, and I'll split my time between there and New York. Alice is being promoted to COO to handle daily operations here. Everything's arranged. But your company, Veronica started, is just a company. Jacob reached across the table, taking her hand. 5 years ago, I chose the company over love. I won't make that mistake again. Does this mean we'll all live together? Jaden asked, his eyes wide with hope, like a real family. If that's what Mommy wants, Jacob said softly, his eyes never leaving Veronica's. The house has a garden where we could plant those flowers you love. There's a park nearby with an amazing playground, and most importantly, we'd be together. Veronica felt tears threatening. For you'd really do this, leave New York. I'd do anything for this family. Jacob squeezed her hand. I know we have a lot to work through, a lot of trust to rebuild, but I want to try, really try, not just as co-parents, but as us, she whispered. He nodded, emotion making his voice rough. As us. Jaden looked between them, clutching Rex tightly. I want us to be together, he said firmly. All of us. And Rex agrees. A laugh bubbled up through Veronica's tears. Well, if Rex agrees, her phone buzzed again, Dr. Williams's final call. With her free hand, she reached for it, while keeping her other hand firmly in Jacob's. Dr. Williams, yes, I've made my decision. She looked at her family, her brilliant, beautiful son, and the man who had found his way back to them. I'll take the position, but I have a few conditions to discuss. The next hour passed in a blur of logistics and plans. Dr. Williams was thrilled, especially when Veronica mentioned Mitchell Pharmaceuticals' interest in Boston. By the time she hung up, Jaden had created an elaborate diagram of how his dinosaurs would be arranged in his new room. Can we paint it blue? He asked, adding another crayon detail to his drawing. And can we have a special shelf for Rex? We can paint it any color you want, Jacob promised, and build as many shelves as you need. When do we move? Tomorrow, Veronica laughed. Not quite that fast, baby. We need to pack, and Daddy needs to arrange things with his company, and we need to find you a new school. But we'll do it all together, Jacob added. As a family, the word felt right now, settled and true. Veronica looked around her apartment, the home she'd built for herself and Jaden, filled with memories of bedtime stories and first steps. Soon it would be packed into boxes, their life transplanted to a new city, but this time they wouldn't be starting over alone. I should call the realtor about the brownstone, Jacob said, reaching for his phone. Unless you'd rather look at other options. Show me those pictures again, Veronica said. The ones of the garden. As they scrolled through photos together, Jayden squeezed between them on the couch, adding commentary about where each of his toys would go. The morning sun streamed through the windows, warming them as they planned their future. "Oh," Jayden suddenly exclaimed, "does this mean you can kiss now? Like Lucas's mommy and daddy do?" The question caught them both off guard. Jacob's eyes met Veronica's, filled with hope and hesitation. That's something mommy and daddy need to figure out slowly," Veronica explained, though she felt her cheeks warm under Jacob's gaze. "But you still love each other, right?" Jayden pressed. "Like in my bedtime stories." The air between them crackled with unspoken emotions, 5 years of separation, of growth, of change. But underneath it all, something familiar and warm, like coming home after a long journey. "Love," Jacob said carefully, "is complicated, buddy. But what's not complicated is how much we both love you and how much we want to be a family together. Even if it means leaving your big, important office. Especially then," Jacob pulled Jayden into a hug, "because you and mommy are more important than any office." Veronica watched them, her heart full. The Boston decision had seemed impossible just days ago, a choice between her career and her family. But sometimes, she was learning, the impossible became possible when you were brave enough to try. Her laptop dinged, an email from the Boston hospital with new hire paperwork. Next to it, the brownstone realtor had sent over virtual tour times. Their new life was taking shape, one detail at a time. "We should celebrate," Jayden declared. "Can we have dinosaur pancakes now?" Jacob looked at Veronica, eyebrows raised in question. "What do you say?" "Ready to see if I remember how to make them heart-shaped like I used to." The memory hit her. Sunday mornings in their tiny studio, Jacob determined to master the art of shaped pancakes just to make her smile. 5 years hadn't erased all the good memories. They'd just been waiting like seeds in winter for the right moment to bloom again. "Pancakes sound perfect," she said. "But this time, let's make them together." The Boston brownstone stood before them, its red brick facade glowing in the late afternoon sun. Moving boxes surrounded them like a cardboard fortress, each one labeled in Veronica's precise handwriting. Jayden bounced excitedly on the front steps, Rex the T-Rex surveying their new domain from his perch in the boy's arms. "Ready?" Jacob asked, key poised in the lock. He'd flown up 3 times in the past month to oversee renovations, making sure everything was perfect for their arrival. "Wait," Jayden called out. "We have to do it together, as a family." Veronica smiled, remembering their son's insistence that they all enter at the same time. These past few weeks had been a whirlwind of changes, leaving their Manhattan apartment, saying goodbye to Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd cried and made them promise to visit, and watching Jacob masterfully balance his company's transition while never missing a single moment of packing or planning. They gathered on the top step, Jayden between them, their hands joining over the key in the lock. 3, 2, 1. Jayden counted down, and they turned the key together. The door swung open to reveal their new home. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, dancing across hardwood floors and freshly painted walls. The renovation crew had finished just yesterday, transforming the historic brownstone into a perfect blend of classic charm and modern comfort. "Look at my room first." Jayden tugged them up the stairs, his excitement infectious. "Daddy, did they build the special dinosaur shelves?" They followed him to a room painted in the exact shade of blue he'd chosen from what felt like hundreds of samples. Custom shelves lined one wall, ready to display his prehistoric friends, while a reading nook by the window offered a perfect spot for bedtime stories. "It's just like I drew it," Jayden exclaimed, running from corner to corner. "Rex, look, this is your special spot." While their son explored his new domain, Jacob and Veronica stood in the doorway, shoulders touching. The past month had been full of such moments. Small touches, lingering glances, the slow rebuilding of trust, and something more. "The moving truck will be here in an hour," Jacob said softly. "Want to see the rest of the house?" They toured each room, Jayden running ahead to declare his verdict on each space. The kitchen with its large island where they could cook together. The family room with built-in bookshelves and a cozy window seat. The master bedroom with its view of their small but charming garden. "And this," Jacob said, opening a door off the main hallway, "is something special." Inside was a home office, but not just any office. 2 desks faced each other near the windows, one clearly set up for Jacob's video conferences with New York, the other equipped with medical journals and a dedicated space for Veronica's research. He hesitated. I thought we could share it. Both be here for Jaden while still pursuing our dreams. Veronica touched the smooth surface of her desk, noting the framed photo already placed there, the three of them at the diner on the night they became a family. It's perfect, she whispered. A commotion outside announced the arrival of the moving truck. The next few hours passed in a blur of boxes and furniture arrangement. Jaden appointed himself official dinosaur placement supervisor, ensuring each prehistoric friend found its proper home on the new shelves. By evening, though chaos still reigned in most rooms, they'd carved out enough order to have their first family dinner in their new home. They sat around boxes labeled kitchen and ate pizza on paper plates, but Jaden declared it the best dinner ever. Can we explore the neighborhood tomorrow? He asked, carefully wiping pizza sauce from Rex's tail. Lucas said we have to try all the ice cream shops to find our favorite. That sounds like an excellent scientific investigation, Jacob agreed. And maybe we can check out that playground we saw on the way in. The one with the big rocket ship. Jaden's eyes lit up. Can we go now? It's getting late, baby, Veronica said. But tomorrow we'll explore everything. Promise. After they'd tucked Jaden into his new bed, surrounded by his dinosaur guardians, Jacob and Veronica found themselves in the garden. The small space was already showing signs of life. Flowers Veronica had chosen were planted along the borders, and a child-sized gardening set waited for Jaden to discover it. Having any regrets? Jacob asked quietly. Veronica looked up at their new home, at the warm light spilling from Jaden's window, at the man who had moved heaven and earth to keep their family together. Only one, she said. Jacob's breath caught. What's that? She turned to face him fully. That we waited so long to do this. The space between them seemed to crackle with electricity. 5 years of separation, of growth, of change, but underneath it all, the same magnetic pull that had drawn them together in the first place. Veronica, Jacob breathed, stepping closer. I know we said we'd take things slow. We did, she agreed, not stepping away. And we have been. But, instead of answering, she closed the distance between them. The kiss was soft, tentative at first, then deepening with years of missed moments and renewed promises. Mommy? Daddy? Jaden's voice from above broke them apart. They looked up to see him hanging out his window, Rex dangling precariously over the sill. I knew it. Lucas said parents who love each other always kiss in gardens. They laughed, the moment shifting from romantic to familial, with the ease that only love can manage. Back to bed, mister, Veronica called up. Tomorrow's a big day. After making sure Jaden was truly settled this time, they stood in their new kitchen, unpacking boxes by soft lamplight. Each item they unwrapped seemed to hold new meaning. No longer just Veronica's things or Jacob's things, but pieces of their shared future. You know, Jacob said, carefully placing Jaden's favorite dinosaur mug in a cabinet, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually excited about stepping back from the CEO role. Really? Veronica paused in her unpacking. No regrets about the company. The company will be fine. Better than fine, actually. Alice is already implementing changes I should have made years ago. He moved to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Besides, I've discovered something much more valuable than corporate success. Oh, and what's that? Family pancakes on Sunday mornings. Dinosaur greetings. Building towers that reach the sky. Watching our son grow up together. Veronica leaned back against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Speaking of our son, he's going to be up at dawn wanting to explore every inch of this neighborhood. Then we should probably get some rest. Jacob's lips found her temple. Big day tomorrow. As they climbed the stairs to their respective rooms, still taking things slow, still rebuilding, Veronica paused at Jaden's door. Inside, their son slept peacefully. Rex clutched to his chest, surrounded by the love that had finally found its way home. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, exploring their neighborhood, setting up their home office, starting their new jobs. But tonight, in this moment, everything was perfect. Sweet dreams, Jacob whispered, not just to Jaden, but to all of them, to this family that had been lost and found and made stronger by the journey. In the quiet of their new home, with Boston's city lights twinkling beyond their windows, 3 hearts beat in perfect synchronization, a rhythm 5 years in the making, but worth every moment of the wait. The end. If you were in Veronica's shoes, After 5 years of raising your son alone, would you be able to trust Jacob again and risk such a big change in your lives, even seeing how hard he is trying to prove that he has changed and wants to be part of the family? Think about how this decision would affect not only you, but especially your son who has just discovered and connected with his father. Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.